Today, in science, you are going to begin working on a mystery. And in this mystery, you are going to investigate what kinds of birds are likely to visit a bird feeder based on what they eat. You will be designing a bird feeder and you're going to create a prototype of your bird feeder using the materials that were sent home with you. Today, we're going to just begin the exploration part of this activity.
Hi, it's Doug. When I was young, my family had a bird feeder in our backyard that my mom or my dad would fill up with seeds. Every now and then, I would notice these little brownish birds coming to eat the seeds. But most of the time, I didn't pay much attention to the bird feeder. Then, one morning, while I was eating breakfast, I caught a glimpse out the window of something bright red near the feeder. These birds were so red they almost looked like fire. I grabbed my binoculars so I could see one of them close up. It looked like this. Wow. It was so colorful. It was like a bird you might see in a pet shop. My dad showed me a book where I could look up all the birds that lived in our area. A field guide, it's called. I looked through the book and found a red bird just like the one I'd seen out the window. It was called a northern cardinal. Now I was curious. I started paying attention to the bird feeder and kept my binoculars close by. Sure enough, a few days later, I caught a flash of a different color. This time, a blue colored bird. Here's what I saw through my binoculars. Just look at all those different blue colors. According to my field guide, this bird was called a blue jay. I flipped through the book some more, and I wondered what other colorful birds would visit the bird feeder, like maybe a bright yellow bird, like this goldfinch, or a bird with bold red, black, and white colors, like a red-headed woodpecker, or maybe something almost rainbow colored, like this wood duck. One of my favorite sections in the bird guide was this, the raptors. Those are the birds that eat meat, birds like falcons, hawks, and eagles. I really wanted to see a hawk at our bird feeder. When I told my parents about the birds I wanted to see, they said we wouldn't get all the birds in the book to come to the feeder. But why not? Which species of birds do you think would visit the bird feeder?
What do you think? Do you think that this bird would come to the feeder? Why or why not? Here's a hint. Think about what this bird would like to eat. How about this bird? Do you think this bird would come to the feeder? Why or why not? Think about what this bird would like to eat. Here's another bird. It's a duck. Do you think that this bird would come to the feeder? Why or why not? Think about what this bird would like to eat. And the hawk. Do you think this bird would come to the feeder? Why or why not? Again, think about what this bird would like to eat.
So, which of these birds came to our feeder? Goldfinches definitely did. In fact, finches of all kinds were the most common visitors. They're just the right size to fit on the perches on the feeder, the little pegs there, and to reach inside and get the seeds. Now, what about woodpeckers? You might know that most woodpeckers don't eat seeds like we had in the feeder. Instead, they hammer holes into tree bark to find insects. But actually, sometimes we did get woodpeckers at our bird feeder. I got really excited whenever a woodpecker visited because they didn't come to the feeder that often. Now, I would have loved to see a colorful duck at our feeder, but no ducks ever came. I realized even though ducks would probably love to eat seeds, they could never fit onto the little perches on a bird feeder. Plus, their beaks are wide, far too big to fit inside the little holes to get the seeds. Okay, but what about raptors? Birds like eagles, hawks, and falcons. Did they ever come to the bird feeder? Well, hawks eat meat, not seeds, so they're not interested in the food from a bird feeder. But watch this. Oh, did you see that? What just happened? Let's watch that again in slow motion. Wow, there's a little bird at the feeder, and the hawk just tried to catch it. So you see, sometimes hawks do come near a feeder, not to eat seeds, but to try to eat other birds. Now, one day, my aunt came over with a new bird feeder for us. one that would attract a different species of bird. She said this was a hummingbird feeder. It looked very strange. I asked her, where do you put the seeds? But she told me this kind of bird feeder didn't hold seeds. So how would it work? How would hummingbirds eat from it? What do you think?
What do you think? Have you seen a bird feeder like this? How would hummingbirds eat from this feeder? How do you think this feeder works to attract hummingbirds? Let's find out.
This kind of bird feeder, called a nectar feeder, is perfect for hummingbirds. You fill it with sugar water that the hummingbirds can drink. You see how the hummingbird's long, thin beaks fit perfectly into the tiny openings at the bottom of the feeder? They sip the sugar water from the feeder, just like they would sip nectar out of flowers. So we've seen that not all birds like to come to bird feeders. Hummingbirds only come to special bird feeders with sugar water. Raptors, like hawks, only come by to try to catch other birds at the feeder. The species of birds you see at a bird feeder depend at least partly on what kind of food you put in it. By far, the most common birds that come to feeders are the birds that like to eat seeds. But it's not just about the food. It's also about how a bird can reach the food. Let's watch some videos of different bird feeders. What do you notice about how different birds are reaching the seeds?
So take a look at this bird. What do you notice about where this bird is standing and how it is eating? Keep this in mind for later when you will be working on creating a bird feeder. How about these birds? What do you notice about where these birds are standing? Look at where this bird is standing. Look at the birds that are over here and look at how they're eating. And how about these birds? What do you notice about where these birds are standing and how they're eating?
In today's activity, you're going to design a bird feeder, a place for birds to come and get a snack. Different kinds of bird feeders bring in different species of birds. Like this one, it's just a big flat tray full of seeds. Larger birds like blue jays and cardinals stand right on the tray to eat. But here's another kind of bird feeder. It's long, straight up and down, and it has perches, little pegs where the birds can stand, kind of like the branches on a tree. Small birds like goldfinches love these feeders. They reach in there and grab the seeds. Woodpeckers usually like a different kind of bird feeder. They like to stand right on the side of tree trunks when they eat. So they like bird feeders with sides they can hang onto with their feet. Here's a close-up. You can see how its feet grab onto something on the side. All these different feeders are solving the same problem. How can we bring birds up close so that we can see them? To plan your bird feeder, you need to think like a bird. First, you're going to think about what kind of birds do you want to come to the feeder, and what do those birds need? Then, you'll draw a few different ideas of what your bird feeder could look like. After that, you'll build a bird feeder. Now, the version you build will be a prototype. That's another way of saying a simple first version of something that helps you figure out if your ideas will work. A prototype can be smaller than what you'd really need for real birds. And a prototype can be made out of cheaper materials that are easier to build things with than your final materials would be. I'll show you how to get started, step by step. Find a partner. Each of you will build your own bird feeder, but you'll talk about your ideas with your partner. If you're not part of a class, you can make a bird feeder on your own. When you're done with this step, click the arrow on the right.
So you are going to be thinking about ideas of how you would like to create your bird feeder.
Get these worksheets for each person. You'll get more supplies later.
You will not need copies of these worksheets. You will see them on Seesaw.
Discuss questions 1A, 1B, and 1C on your worksheet with your partner. Then write your answers. You can choose any of the birds on the worksheet, or any other bird you know, as long as you know what that bird eats. Your answers may be different from your partner's. Remember, each of you will make a bird feeder and they can be different.
So what you are going to do after you watch this video is on Seesaw, you are going to circle the type of bird that you want to come to your feeder. So I want you to think, do you want finches to come? Finches eat seeds and they also like to stand on a peg while eating. Jays like to eat seeds and they like to stand on a tray while eating. If you are hoping to have woodpeckers come to your feeder, they eat seeds and bugs and they like to hang on the sides of feeders to eat. And then cardinals eat seeds and they like to stand on a tray while eating. So I want you to think about what kind of bird you want to come to your feeder. And then think about what does that bird eat and where does that bird like to stand when it eats.
One thing that might keep birds away from your feeder is danger. A big danger for birds is this: cats. Discuss with your partner, then answer question 1D on your worksheet. Your answer might be different from your partner's. That's okay.
So what can you do to keep your bird feeders safe? Or to keep birds safe from cats with your bird feeder? Keep that in mind.
Do question number 3 on your worksheet. Talk with your partner about what your bird feeder could look like. Remember, you're sharing ideas, but each of you is making your own bird feeder. Draw at least 2 pictures of different ideas. Be sure your pictures show where the food will be, where the birds will stand, and what will keep the birds safe from cats. Your pictures don't have to include every detail. Sometimes you figure out the details by building.
So what you are going to do is you are going to draw 2 ideas for your bird feeder in a notebook, maybe your drawing notebook or another notebook that you have. You are going to open it up to a clean page, and with a pencil, you can draw a line down the center, and I want you to draw 2 different ideas for your bird feeder. So let's pretend that I am hoping to have jays come to my feeder. And I need to remember that jays like to eat seeds and they like to stand on a tray while they're eating. So maybe what I'm going to do is, and these are the supplies that you're going to be using if that helps you. I am going to start by drawing my plate, and then maybe I'm going to use my pipe cleaner, and this would be where all the seeds would go so that my jay could stand on top of it. Another idea that maybe I could use for my jay to get jays to come is to take that tin foil, and that would be a place where they would stand. And then, let's see, I might put the cup on top, and then maybe the cup could have holes in it so the seeds could come out and the bird would stand on the tin foil. So what you're doing is you are just drawing 2 pictures of your ideas for your bird feeders. Once you finish your 2 ideas for your bird feeders, you are going to put a picture of it on Seesaw. And in our next science lesson, you will be using tools and the supplies to build the type of bird feeder for the bird that you chose.